Hello, hello. This is Dr. Alex here with you. Welcome to the Becoming Zesty podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, hi there. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about how a better world is here and now, and it's really, really good news. It's a really, really exciting time in the world, and there's been a lot of discussion the last decade or so, a little bit more, of this new earth vibe, right? Eckhart Tolle's got a book that's not new on this subject. There's lots of work that is kind of generally accepted of this idea that a new world is coming. And so there's a lot of people asking right now, a lot of people noticing, gosh, the energy of the world and how things work and what's coming to light. There's just a lot of change. And for those of us who live from a place of self-awareness, that self-awareness, right, we are not separate from the world. So part of self-awareness, then what's ironic about that is when we work on self-awareness, it becomes really a better awareness of the world around us as well, but it's done through the appropriate lens, as opposed to putting our focus just on the externals of us. We see the world through ourselves, and in so bring in acceptance to it. And so that is all kind of how we end up seeing things. And so when we are kind of exploring the idea of when is it going to be time to step into this better world, there's some notable things happening in the noticing of this. And some of it is really great, and we'll talk about that too. But there's this recurrent problem that most of us are running into. Now, first of all, we have to understand that this process is happening, I think of it in waves, or you can think of it in stages. And the things that are turning over of a new leaf, like for example, they're rolling out when Instagram rolls out new features, or on phones or whatever, they don't roll it out all at once, right? It's done in stages in terms of some accounts, and then they add other ones, and then eventually it goes to everybody. And that's a process of vetting things out, making sure they work, all of that stuff, right? And so in part, when we think of change on the planet, that has often happened as well, right? Like any big change of how society works, or who we accept or who we cast out, all of that, in any of those transition points, there's always been the people that kind of start the wave, are early to join that wave, are middle of the wave, and then the bulk of it comes in later, right? But there's this concept of it doesn't happen all at once. So a little bit of that is great, because, or some parts of that is great, because essentially you can find people that are really relating to what you're feeling right now. So that's cool. There's also people to watch and role model from, and that's great, though I'll make a case for why I think we need more. And then there's also people that we can say, oh, not from a place of judgment, but I see where they are. I see that I've made progress, and in doing so, that is how I come to understand the progress that I've made, right? And so we perceive ourselves in the mirror, so to speak, as in it's the comparison, not from a judgmental place, but from a emotionally neutral place, to say, I see where the focus on me is, and I see how I compare, and this, I am proud of the decisions that I've made so far, and here's what I can do to change moving forward, right? So there's a lot of beauty in that process. A little bit of what then feeds the issue that we're going to talk about is then when there's too much comparison, or when you find the people that are generally in your wave, but then you start to move forward and they're not on the same page as you. Sometimes all of those details get us mired in the thinking of, I can't really move forward. There is so much resistance happening. And so the idea of this episode is to say that there's been a big waiting time as we've been getting ready for kind of a big up-leveling of the consciousness of the world, and there is so much coming to light now, and it kind of looks ugly, but on the flip side, it's bringing in a whole lot of light and love and awareness and acceptance and all of those things. So, in the grand scheme of things, that's great. But as the transition happens to a time to act, that is where, for the leadership and for the people who get the sense that they are the ones to role model, and a lot of people who listen to the Becoming Zesty podcast and come to our retreats and things like that, they already identify themselves as that. Even if we have people that are like, I don't have a business yet, I'm not totally sure what I want to do with that, they just have the overall sense that they want to do something bigger and do something that helps the world and do something that really helps all of us create a better world. And so with that awareness has come the time where it is time to act. Right? The time for waiting has come to a close, and that is where the squeeze occurs. So Megan and I, that's our terminology. We call it the squeeze because essentially whenever we have resistance to our own path, like where we said, this is the purpose that I want to come here for, when we have resistance to that path, life does us a favor by applying a little squeeze in where we were feeling maybe too comfy, too secure, this job pays the bills, but you really want to start that business, right? The squeeze then is the impetus to make that leap. So often we don't have to wait for the squeeze, but boy, humans seem to generally wait for it, right? And that's part, as we advance in leadership, most of the time is being like, let me not wait for that. I have the sense that I want to do this. Let me go have the courage to do it. So that all emerges. But the squeeze is a necessary part, I think, because for the most part, we've all been in a place where you should have broken up with someone, didn't. Should have left that job, didn't. Should have moved from that place, didn't, right? So the squeeze does us that service of, it helps us localize our path and not give up and not forget the desires of our heart that are really there for our fulfillment and our pleasure and enjoyment and all of that. That is why when it's time to act, for the leaders that feel the call, the squeeze, the discomfort, the thing, you might be like, nothing's happening. I feel terrible every day. And I'm like, ugh, something's wrong. What's going on, blah, blah, all this stuff. That's what I'm talking about, is that, and no one can really tell you, right? You might be like, well, Anna, I feel like that sometimes. The thing is, with time, you will know, because that feeling, either, you wake up the next day, you're like, oh, it's cool, everything's fine, and you're chilling, or you really are like, no, every day, this does not change. There's something here for me. And that's the people that, right now, that's who we're talking to. But really, anyone following is going to bump up against similar things, except for later waves have the added benefit of there will be more and more role models. And that takes the pressure off and the load off a few and helps the whole thing snowball, right? This change needs to actually turn into this big avalanche at some point. And so we do need more and more role modelers to step into that role. And so what's the main issue that people are running into, myself included? I don't think anyone's really exempt from this, because the human mind, the brain, stores memories, and you remember the past. And so here's the whole rub. The world has worked one way, and now it's working a different way, and it's time to act. A lot of what our spirits and our intuition, sense, however you verbalize that, the Holy Spirit, whatever words you use for that, whenever we get that impulse for something, our mind goes, oh, I tried that, or I did this and it didn't work, or I did a version of that and it didn't work. And that's the whole thing, is that we have to overcome the inherent fear that we feel to that old patterning, because if we say the past predicts the future, then we can't essentially the better world is here, but we won't get to see it. Like, we're not in the vicinity of it. We're not in the neighborhood. We actually, the changeover is here. But until we all start to move like it, until some of us start to live like it and show that works and how to live like that, then we can't perceive it with our actual eyes. We will just be feeling the energy of that call internally, right? And so that's where, to me, that there's a couple actual practical answers to this problem, because it's like, yeah, I know, I feel the fear, but how do I overcome that? For one, all of it is rooted in the mind, the mental body, the brain, the mind, all of that. Subconscious, conscious. The mental body stores that. Our society has been heavily dependent and has honored the mental body above almost all else. Reasoning, logic, education, learning, all that, right? So part of that is there's a disproportionate focus and reverence towards the mental body, and it doesn't matter how you feel, and it doesn't matter what your spirit's telling you, and it, you know, all that, your physical body might be in shambles, but you better go to work and think, right? And so part of that is that, in practicality, is part of the shift. That has to change. We cannot all act like that. And so the leaders then have to role model, essentially saying, if I'm getting looped into this old story that is stored in my mental body, and part of the transition is to begin to honor and bring more attention to the other three that make up, you know, humans and who we are as beings, that is what it looks like to actually have practices that quiet the mind and get you into your emotions, your body, your spirit, your all of that kind of stuff. And of course, it eventually translates to mental understanding and the conceptualization of the change that you have experienced in yourself. It does, even when I go to, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed by this problem that my mind can't grasp it, I'm just going to put it down. What ends up happening is that I find information and guidance and all sorts of power in the other aspects of who I am. Because sometimes I'll stop thinking and I will just feel, and you know, the frustration I was feeling eventually will move and work as, you know, peak. And of course, that's not fun to go through. But as it moves, then what I find in my heart is it's such a beautiful desire that I have to help. And that frustration comes from like not feeling like I could help more people, right? And so when I discover what's underneath the frustration, that feelingness goes, oh, that's why I do this. It is hard to end an interaction, even if I had a rough day and I was frustrated and I don't have the things that I want. When I step away and I feel into, this is what the desires in my heart are. One, I have a lot of appreciation for me, first of all. I do all that because I really, truly come from a good place, and I know that. And so, like, that's something I can feel really good about. And no matter if someone comes and tells me, oh, you're just greedy, you just want money, it doesn't land because I know I've sat with that and seen me. Right. And so it can't be threatened like that. So that brings that function. And two, it's hard to quit at the end of a day where you say, like, this is what the desires of my heart is. And it comes from such a good place, because I may be frustrated with how it's going, but that desire, I'm always going to choose, you know? And so when we allow ourselves to step away, our mind, ironically enough, will tell us that, oh gosh, you won't ever figure it out then. But the whole thing is that in this better world, we have more sources of answers, of guidance, of direction, of knowing what the right path for us is, for knowing like what will bring us the greatest fulfillment. You know, if two paths are otherwise equal in practicality, you know, how do we choose the one that fulfills our heart and our spirit, so that at the end of our life we can say, I loved it, you know? And so that's what part of the role modeling looks like, and it makes sense then that that is where part of the taking apart of the old structures and the old world is quite literally happening, but there is not enough discussion kind of on the practicality of what do you do. There's a lot of people being like, there's a new world, go and live it. Yeah, but how? So this is the discussion of how. And if you come across people in the world that are struggling with this kind of thing, share this episode with them, right? Or our 2-day habit event is coming up August 20th, 21st. If you're in the Dallas area, there's going to be a link in the show notes for that. Or if you can fly on in, come on by, because essentially we're going to be talking about how to live as someone that's a leader in this new world, in this better world that we are all stepping into, and it's here. But the presence of being here and now, of stepping out of the mental body, however it is that you choose to do that. I do breathing exercises, I use affirmations, I use energy work and practices, I use grounding things, crystals, water, baths, showers, even just spritzing myself with sprays. There's a million different ways to get your mind, candle gazing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do, as long as you allow the mental body to quiet down by focusing on literally anything else that is more boring. Right? That's right. You can listen to the hum of an air conditioner. Anything can have your own heartbeat, if you feel it. That's it. That's as complicated as you need to make it. What's complicated is not falling for the mental gremlins in your mind telling you that the world will end when you stop thinking, and that you'll never figure it out, and that nothing will happen and your goals will go unlived. Because you don't even have to take my word for it. Just try it out and see it. You will find that it's not true. Yeah? And so that is one way of looking at it. The other thing is that there is the way that the consequence of the thinking of that using the past is to be like, when I have blank, then I will do blank. Like, for example, I can't travel with the kids until I make money. But I also can't spend time with the kids right now, even if we don't travel, because I need to be working so that I can make money to go on the vacation, right? So the logical, and that is absolutely that's that old world we were all living, and we all agreed that it is very logical and it makes sense, and I still think so. Like, logic-wise, absolutely, that makes sense. The thing here, though, is that in the new world, in the here and now of it, is the presence of creating a life that you like now. The better world is here. It's not to slave away, sacrifice, and be miserable for a later point. That thinking is the old world. The thinking that I can have enjoyment now is the vibe here now for us. And so part of that is we have to have the acceptance of, if you've ever thought, when I have money, I'll do this, and then you keep not having money, so you don't have that alone should alert you to the problem. As in, this isn't something I'm pointing out. You've already lived that problem. You know that date keeps moving because the order of things just somehow doesn't line up. So why doesn't it line up? And so when we ask those better questions, we can say, how can it be then, if this is a better world, then shouldn't I be enjoying it more now? And the answer is yes, absolutely, you should be enjoying it more now. That's the whole point. And I had a big aha relatively recently when I was like, I'll get my, intuition will say rest. And then I am like, no, I gotta, do this, and I should reach out to these people, and I gotta, just drop out these flyers and stuff. And I was like, why would I want my intuition to tell me the hardest way, the work hardest way to get there? don't I want my intuition to tell me the easiest way? So if I just take a nap and then go to the place where I was going to hand out the flyers, and then the person that I really should talk to is there at that time instead of the time I was planning on, right? I don't know why, it's almost like I caught myself in the lie and noticed myself in the mirror to be like, whoa, what is it that I'm even possibly getting at? Because when I say that, I don't want it. I don't want to do it in the hard way. I don't like that at all, honestly. And so part of that is a better world starts with you enjoying your life now. And I know what you're going to say and what you're thinking. You're saying, Alex, but I'm stressed because I need the money to pay the bills. But if that are your bills due now, and I'm not saying go spend the money, but that nap is free. And continuing to then listen to your spirit, your intuition, whatever you call it, when you get up to go to the next thing and being willing to do that work. It's oftentimes we take a nap and then go, oh, I took a nap, I might as well throw in the towel on the whole day. And that's where that past thinking will get you again. You did good on the nap, messed it up on the back end, right? Not really messed it up, but mismanaged it. Where each moment then becomes what's happening now. And when I wake up, I get the impulse, go to the store. Cool, I'm at the store. Oh, good, I meet this person. Hey, can we hop on Zoom? I'll show you what I'm doing. Cool. Oh, we're on Zoom. Your sister needs this. Oh, good. Can I talk? Can we connect? I'll see if I can help her. Oh, she needs my help. Great. Here's the invoice. Do you see how this works? Like, essentially, can each moment be a new moment without you pre-deciding how it's going to go wrong or how it has to go right or how you're going to freak out if it doesn't go right when it has to? I know this all gets very complicated, but our mental gremlins will run us around that round room over and over and over again. And so that's where probably hearing it out loud on the podcast or video in your ears, you're like, whoa, is that what I sound like? And, probably, but that's okay. When we catch that kind of thing, that's where we can say, how about I just do the thing that I feel called to do? For example, if you're like, if I had money, I'd spend time with my kids every day. That is something, if it's free and it can be in some way carried out, it might be quality time in the car getting places. It might be right before bed. It might be, on Zoom. I'm not saying that it's going to be perfect. That's the whole thing. We're thinking that we just pop into a world that's easy and then everything will just lock into place. And then it'll be like, I don't have to ever second guess anything or question. That's not it. We don't stop being humans in this better world. As in, if you have doubts, that's between you and you, right? And they will continue to be between you and you until you work it out. But the whole function of saying, if I want connection with my partner and I need to make time for that, or I need to remember that or whatever, then what does now look like to execute on that desire and that what I say is valuable to me, right? If I'm working hard for my family, then if an alien came down and watched me live my life, they should be able to come to the conclusion that family is important to me. But if I have spent all day ignoring my partner, being annoyed at my kids and partner and friends at bothering me or whatever, or I got interrupted in my meditation, they wouldn't come to that conclusion, right? They just wouldn't get the memo because we don't act like it. That's where the actual evidence comes from. And so that's a way to sort of look at it, to be like, if I value health, if someone were to watch me from a neutral place, not, aliens presumably don't know what you should be doing. Maybe they do, I don't know, they seem kind of advanced. But from the outside, does it currently in the now, how is that represented? If being kind to yourself is important to you, is that there? Is having fun and having play in life there? Is there evidence? Can you see it? Is it represented? It's a great resource from flipping the script and looking at ourselves from that side, not from the perspective of our stories, because the stories will always tell us, you need to work, you need to make money, you can't rest, that's crazy, all that stuff. But when we look at it, we say, if these things are truly so important to me and a better world for me would include those things, well, then if the better world is here and now, then the here and now is where I create that. So what does it look like? What does movement look like? Maybe you've been telling yourself you're going to the gym and that's a 2-hour endeavor. Okay, what would a walk look like? What does doing 30 squats before a shower look like? What does stretching in bed before bed or when you wake up look like? Right? It's where like, have I done something that I feel called to do today to represent this better world that I have right now? Because I think that when we use the past evidence and then use it for now, like for example, you're like, I tried launches and I didn't make money, so I'm trying a thing now and I don't have the belief that I'll make money, and that's where it's showing up. That's where we can really actually utilize our ability to step away from that past and say, today, if my life is full and rich and full of the things that I value and I find fulfillment in, the odds, it's not that you can't have a terrible day and get to, the end of the day and be like, today sucked, I wish I had what I wanted. Sure. You're like, I want to go on vacation, I don't have it, it's not responsible right now to go, whatever. You make the call not to because whatever's going on in your life and you're feeling bad about that. Okay, there may be a time where that comes up, but in the grand scheme of things, having lived a complete day that day and honored what you felt and kind of the desires that you had in that day is going to feel so much more safe to say, I can hold space for the unknown. And really, it's not holding space for the unknown, it's holding space for my discomfort with the unknown, because I perceive that potentially in the unknown, there's a problem that's bigger than me. And anytime we feel that there's a problem bigger than us, then we feel small and it feels scary. But right, when we have a complete life and we find the fulfillment in knowing I spent time with my partner and we had so much fun and I love them so much, and my kids and I'm role modeling this, and they said this funny thing today and we laughed so hard, and then this happened and I made this suggestion and that helped soothe them and that felt good to me. Having that kind of sense, there's a certain amount of longevity and perseverance that allows for, because it doesn't have the space for the mental gremlins to say, oh, this is pointless, you're worthless, this is all for naught, we're just gonna freak out and throw our hands up. These things, they sound simple to do. They're of course not easy in feeling to execute, but what's nice and what helps me in these times is just to say, while it's not easy to do, this is not a complex problem per se. And what I do is I create reminders. I have notes on my phone, sticky notes up in my house. I talk about that a lot, but I use that as a resource a lot because it's easy to forget in life, right? It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to sort of forget the things that we know we want to be important to us. And so I remind myself, right, of these things, and it helps me remember I don't need to sit around and do it as a mental exercise to figure out. I don't need to figure out the complexity of the problem over and over. That's me getting looped into my mental body. I can remember that the better world is here now. And so I'm going to move as much as possible to have all the things that I want, and the experiences and the feelings and the mindsets and the thoughts and all that now. And when I get into sticking points, and when I get into a lot of fear of the past and what has happened and judgment and all that, then I can always step away from my mental body to find refuge and calm and more info, guidance, just direction in my other three, knowing that I am much greater than what my mind can possibly comprehend. Right? Luckily, we are bigger than our spirit's bigger than our mental body. So luckily there are mysteries for us to always discover. There's never boredom on this planet. There's always something to learn and do and get to know about yourself. So it's a good thing that it all works in the fashion that it does. And so I urge you, in closing, to remind yourself to deprioritize the complexity of it in your mind, and focus in on the action steps, the what it looks like, and how to actually put one foot in front of the other, creating what your better world really truly looks like, and getting to enjoy it now. And I'm so excited for when there's more and more of us doing this, because there's going to be more role models. It's going to be easier for all of us walking the path to do that. Plus, then that'll be easier for more people to follow, which means that we'll have help and we'll have other people to have fun with, enjoy life with. A lot of people feel a little lonely right now, because in your community, you might be early on in the waves, and there's the perception, at least, there's not a lot around you. That will change. This is what it will look like, and it is super exciting, and we no longer have to wait for it. Hallelujah. Because I don't know about you, but I don't like waiting for stuff. Like, I want it now, and guess what? We get to have it now. So best news ever. Make sure to share this with any of your friends that are having a hard time and all of these crazy changes and energies, or maybe they feel the desires of their heart but are struggling to actually live that. Go ahead and share this episode or send them our way. They can always shoot us an email. And definitely check out the 2-day habit event coming up next week. If you can get there, we would love to have you, and you definitely don't want to miss it. There's going to be resources there that we have not shared anywhere else, so don't miss out. All right, mwah.